You don't rebuild your life in a moment. You rebuild it when something inside you finally breaks. Not your body, not your bank account, not your circumstances. Your illusion, the illusion that things will somehow change without you changing first. Most people enter a new year with the same habits that ruined the last one. They buy a new planner. They set ambitious goals. They feel excited for about 10 days. Then the old identity returns. The old routine, the old thinking. And slowly the new year becomes a copy of the old one. Not because they lack motivation, but because they never rebuilt the foundation. Napoleon Hill understood something that most people miss. Success is not built by occasional effort. It's built by deliberate transformation of the mind. And transformation doesn't happen randomly. It happens by design. Hill spent over 20 years studying the most successful people of his time. Industrialists, inventors, entrepreneurs. Men who built fortunes when there were no guarantees. And he discovered something surprising. They didn't just pursue success. They reconstructed themselves. They rebuilt their thinking, their beliefs, their habits, their tolerance for discomfort. Because the old version of you cannot carry the life you want. It's too small, too conditioned, too comfortable. If you want a different life in 2026, you don't need more motivation. You need a new operating system. And Hill believed that transformation follows a simple truth. You don't change everything at once. You change one principle at a time. 12 months, 12 mental shifts, 12 disciplines, each one rewiring how you think and act. Most people approach success like a sprint. Hill approached it like architecture, layer by layer, brick by brick. Because real change is structural, not emotional. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. You cannot rebuild yourself while protecting your old identity. Something must be dismantled. Your excuses, your fear of judgment, your addiction to comfort, your habit of quitting when results are invisible. Rebuilding requires demolition first, and most people avoid that stage. They want improvement without discomfort, growth without sacrifice, results without discipline. But every successful person Hill studied paid the same price. They accepted temporary discomfort in exchange for permanent capability. So, the question is not whether success is possible. It is. The question is whether you are willing to become the person who can carry it. That transformation begins with the first month, and the first principle Hill believed everything else depends on: definiteness of purpose. Without purpose, effort scatters. You start things, you stop things. You change direction every few weeks. Your energy leaks everywhere. Purpose compresses energy. It turns chaos into direction. But here's the problem. Most people think they have purpose. What they actually have are preferences. I'd like to be successful. I want financial freedom. I want a better life. Those are wishes. Purpose is different. Purpose is specific. It has weight. It demands behavior. When Hill asked successful people about their purpose, their answers were clear, direct, uncompromising. They knew exactly what they were building, and that clarity simplified every decision. Because when purpose is defined, distraction loses power. Most people never reach this stage. They drift between interests. They chase opportunities. They react to circumstances. But drifting never compounds. Purpose does. The first month of rebuilding is brutal because it forces honesty. You have to confront what you actually want, not what sounds impressive, not what others expect, not what feels safe. What you truly want to build. Once that decision is made, something interesting happens. Energy returns. Clarity increases. Focus sharpens because the mind now has a direction. But purpose alone is not enough. The second month begins the real work. Desire, not casual desire. Not it would be nice. Hill described desire as a burning obsession. the kind that refuses to disappear, the kind that keeps you moving when nothing is happening yet. Most people misunderstand desire. They think desire is excitement. It's not. Excitement fades. Real desire survives boredom. It survives doubt. It survives slow progress. And slow progress is unavoidable. Every meaningful pursuit has a long, invisible phase where effort piles up quietly, where nothing seems to be changing. This phase destroys casual desire. People lose interest. They get discouraged. They conclude it's not working. But he'll notice something fascinating. The people who eventually succeeded were not the most talented. They were the ones whose desire lasted longer than the invisible phase. They simply refused to let the goal disappear. That persistence transformed average ability into extraordinary results. This is where the rebuilding process starts to feel uncomfortable, because desire forces you to choose. You cannot desire everything equally. You must eliminate options. Commitment removes escape routes. And once escape routes disappear, effort deepens. Now, the third month introduces something many people reject: faith. Not religious faith, psychological faith. The belief that your effort will eventually produce results. Before there is evidence, before there is proof, before there is reassurance. Hill believed faith is a trained mental habit, not blind optimism. It's built through repetition, through daily reinforcement of belief, because the mind becomes what it repeatedly hears. Most people unknowingly program themselves for doubt. They rehearse failure. They imagine worst-case scenarios. They talk themselves out of opportunity. Faith reverses that pattern. You begin training the mind to expect progress, not instantly, but eventually, and that expectation changes behavior. When you believe effort will pay off, you endure longer. When you believe effort is pointless, you quit early. Faith determines how long you stay in the game, and staying in the game is everything. Because the fourth month introduces the next transformation: specialized knowledge. He'll notice successful people were not generalists. They developed deep expertise in specific areas. They understood the details others ignored. Most people chase information. Successful people chase application. They learn only what moves their purpose forward, and they practice relentlessly. This stage feels slow, but it builds competence, and competence builds confidence. Confidence built through skill is stable. Confidence built through motivation collapses. Now, by the fifth month, something begins to shift internally. Your thinking sharpens, your habits stabilize, your direction becomes clearer. This is where Hill introduced another principle: imagination. Because once knowledge exists, imagination multiplies it. Imagination connects ideas. It creates opportunities. It sees leverage where others see limits. Hill believed imagination is the workshop where plans are built. Most people never reach this stage because they are too busy surviving. But once your mind becomes disciplined, creativity increases. Not chaotic creativity, strategic creativity. Now the sixth month becomes crucial because imagination must transform into organized planning. Ideas without plans stay fantasies. Planning turns thought into structure. But Hill discovered something important. Plans rarely work perfectly the first time. They fail. They require adjustment. They evolve. Most people quit here. They mistake imperfect plans for wrong goals. Successful people simply improve the plan, not abandon the mission. This distinction changes everything. By this stage of the year, you're no longer the same person who started. Your thinking has changed. Your discipline has increased. Your tolerance for discomfort has grown. But the hardest transformation is still ahead, because the next principle Hill identified is the one that separates dreamers from achievers, and almost nobody survives it. Decision. Decision is where most lives stall. Not because people are incapable, because people hesitate. Napoleon Hill noticed something fascinating while studying successful individuals. They made decisions quickly and changed them slowly. Most people do the opposite. They delay decisions, then change them constantly. That pattern destroys momentum. Indecision keeps you suspended between possibilities. You research, you compare, you ask for opinions, and while you're thinking, time moves forward. Opportunities expire. Energy fades. But when you decide, something powerful happens. Your mind reorganizes itself. Focus increases. Noise decreases. Distractions lose strength. Because the brain now knows where attention belongs. The 7th month in Hill's rebuilding process is about installing that habit. You stop treating decisions like permanent life sentences. You treat them like temporary commitments. You choose a direction. You commit to it long enough to gather real feedback. And once you do this, something interesting happens. Progress accelerates. Not because your decisions are perfect, because movement creates clarity. Standing still never does. Now, once decision becomes habit, the 8th month introduces something far more demanding: persistence. Hill believed persistence was the quality that turned desire into reality. But persistence is misunderstood. People imagine persistence as dramatic effort, relentless intensity, heroic sacrifice. In reality, persistence is quieter. It looks like showing up again tomorrow, even when yesterday produced nothing. Persistence is boring, repetitive, unglamorous, and that's why it's rare. Hill found that most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they abandon their goal during the silent phase. The silent phase is brutal. You work, you improve, you refine your plan. But the outside world doesn't change yet. There are no visible rewards, no applause, just effort. This is where most people retreat. They interpret silence as failure. Hill understood something different. Silence is the stage where momentum is forming. But momentum is invisible until it suddenly isn't. Persistence carries you through that invisible phase. And once persistence becomes habit, the 9th month introduces a force Hill believed was incredibly powerful: the mastermind principle. Success rarely happens alone, not because individuals are incapable, but because collaboration multiplies intelligence. Hill observed that successful people surrounded themselves with others who were ambitious, focused, forward-thinking. Your environment shapes your expectations. If the people around you tolerate mediocrity, your standards drop. If the people around you demand growth, your behavior changes. Mastermind relationships accelerate learning. They expose blind spots. They challenge your thinking. They hold you accountable. And accountability protects discipline when motivation fades. Now, by the 10th month of rebuilding, something begins happening internally. Your thinking becomes more controlled, more deliberate. This stage introduces a principle many people overlook: emotional discipline. Hill noticed that highly successful people controlled their reactions, not perfectly, but intentionally. They didn't allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions. Most people operate the opposite way. A bad day leads to quitting. A slow week leads to doubt. A setback leads to retreat. Emotion becomes the driver. Emotional discipline reverses this. You still feel frustration, fear, doubt, but you no longer obey them. You continue executing the plan. This skill alone prevents countless failures. Now, the 11th month introduces something Hill considered deeply important: the subconscious mind. Hill believed the subconscious absorbs repeated thoughts and turns them into behavior. Whatever you feed, the mind consistently becomes belief. Beliefs shape actions. Actions shape outcomes. Most people unknowingly program themselves for limitation. They repeat thoughts like, "This probably won't work," "I'm not ready," "I'll start later." Those thoughts slowly become identity. Hill taught the opposite. You deliberately plant thoughts aligned with your purpose, not empty affirmations, but reminders of your direction. Over time, your subconscious begins aligning your actions with those beliefs. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. This is how identity changes. Now, the 12th and final month of rebuilding introduces the most powerful principle Hill described: action with controlled persistence. By this stage, something inside you is different. You no longer rely on motivation. You operate through structure, through routine, through clear decisions. You act because the system demands it, not because you feel inspired. And this is where transformation becomes permanent, because you've rebuilt the architecture of your behavior. You now have purpose directing your focus, desire fueling your effort, faith stabilizing your belief, knowledge strengthening your skill, imagination expanding your ideas, planning structuring your path, decision eliminating hesitation, persistence carrying you through silence, alliances amplifying your growth, emotional discipline protecting your focus, subconscious alignment reinforcing your identity, and consistent action turning all of it into results. Most people attempt change emotionally. They feel motivated, they push hard, they burn out. Hill's method works differently. It rebuilds the mind layer by layer, month by month, until the person who began the year no longer exists. And that is the real secret. Success is not about chasing a different life. It's about becoming someone who naturally produces it. The transformation isn't loud. There's no dramatic moment, just gradual changes. Your mornings become more structured. Your decisions become clearer. Your focus sharpens. Your tolerance for boredom increases. You stop restarting. You stop searching for shortcuts. You simply continue. And continuing is what most people fail to do. Now here's the final truth. If you follow this process for a full year, something interesting happens. The goal you started with often becomes less important than the person you became while pursuing it. Because the real reward of rebuilding yourself isn't the outcome. It's the capability. You become someone who can handle difficulty, someone who finishes what they start, someone who doesn't collapse when results are slow. That identity is powerful, because once you become that person, success stops being mysterious. It becomes inevitable, not instantly, but eventually. Now here's the final challenge. Don't try to change everything tonight. Choose one principle, just one, and apply it for the next 30 days. Then move to the next 12 months, 12 transformations, one rebuilt mind. If you're serious about rebuilding yourself in 2026, comment one word below, rebuilt, and subscribe if you want more ideas from Napoleon Hill and other success thinkers that show you not just how to dream about success, but how to become the person who can actually carry it.